Are you guys ready for more Sony Spider-Man movies? My favorite Sony, like Spider-Man 3, my favorite movie is Sony Spider-Man. Okay. Kieran and I are both wearing Star Wars things still.
Yeah, that's why I was going to change my shirt.
Yeah.
New podcast, new week, new shirt, new topic.
And Quinn is just like preserved in carbonite.
That's the intro.
I don't own a washing machine, actually, so this is...
Quinn just lives down here. He's been here the whole time.
That's our new way that we have Quinn on every podcast.
Just can't leave.
Yeah. He just
He
stays
stands
here.
behind this curtain when we're not here.
That's the next intro.
Yeah, Quinn's like walking out from behind the curtain. Oh, man. Oh. Okay.
Be on the lookout. In case Quinn's in anything.
Yeah. Welcome to Unorganized Thought, the podcast where we're not currently owned by Disney, thank goodness. But probably
the only thing left.
Yeah, one of the only things left. Probably will be acquired, and you know they probably already own like our faces and voices just from like.
They're gonna sue us for using them.
Yeah, we said the word Disney. They're gonna somehow twist our arms, turn the people against us, and acquire us.
Our 4 viewers turned against us.
Yeah, and yet, with me saying that, Marvel isn't Marvel. No, not Marvel. Disney isn't even who we're attacking today. It's Sony, a victim of Disney.
Now they're a victim of us.
Yeah, but anyways, first we should introduce ourselves. For I am an actor brother, Aidan.
Oh, and I am an actor brother of the Kieran variety.
And I am not an actor brother. I'm Quinn, unrelated.
Unrelated.
Quinn,
related by
Quinn,
heart.
The lives behind the curtain.
Yeah.
Please send help. I can't leave.
Yeah. Pay no attention
Don't
to the
listen to
boy
that.
behind
Don't
the
listen to
curtain. there's gonna be a podcast one time where there's just something moving here. Shut up.
Shut up, Quinn.
We'll get fed next week.
You're gonna stay still.
Don't listen to him. He can leave anytime he wants to leave.
All right, but first I am supposed to mention that though this podcast
Mention it.
though this podcast may be kind of long, and hopefully you're still here for this part, we're hoping to put out some shorter content soon.
Maybe by the time this comes out.
Yeah, maybe by the time this is out, we'll already have one.
We don't know when this is.
And so we just want to let you know about that. Thank you if you stick around to the end. We'd really appreciate that. But just to let you know, maybe if this isn't for you, if you just kind of sign onto the podcast and then go, this is way too long, then like we get that. We're hopefully going to be bringing out some better stuff for you. And I'm also supposed to tell you to like the video, subscribe, and like...
And comment.
Comment.
Do they
Comment.
say that? Do people like? Oh yeah, like, comment.
Like, comment, and subscribe!
Yeah, you just gotta say it in that voice, and then you know what you're supposed to say.
Yeah. And I guess ring the bell. I don't know if that helps as much as liking or commenting.
And we don't know if any of it helps. Really, if you have the option between liking, commenting, or subscribing,
I want you to comment because I want to hear what you have to say.
Well, that, and also just like maybe like spreading the news.
Yeah.
I'd take that.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, I don't want to dwell too much on that. Do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Like, it's your life.
We
I
don't
care.
we don't control you.
Yeah.
Watch it.
Yet.
Don't watch it.
Anyways, we should have showed Quinn the trailer before we started this, maybe.
Nah, it'll be more fun to just explain
To explain it to him. But anyways, I guess when this comes out, it might have been a week or two.
A week or two, yeah.
But the Morbius trailer dropped. And so, if you're unaware, Marvel / Disney and Sony have a complicated relationship going on at the moment, Quinn.
Mm-hmm.
I think this episode will mostly be us explaining things to Quinn.
Yeah, most likely.
So, yeah. So, essentially, when Marvel was poor, they loaned out their characters to other companies.
Mm-hmm.
They sold them.
They sold the rights to their characters
Mm-hmm.
in order to keep food on the
Alive.
table. And so they dispersed some over to Fox, which would have been X-Men, Daredevil, Deadpool, those Fantastic Four. They gave Sony Spider-Man and Spider-Man's accompanying villains and allies and all of that stuff. You know, kind of just all over the place. They just like they were this poor farmer who was like trying to keep his land, so he went, take my horse and my crops, you know, just so they can keep the little farmer's little shack. But then, wouldn't you know it, the little farmer built his empire with what little he had left. All he had was a few measly crops of Captain America and Iron Man. These, like, and at the time those characters maybe weren't quite as popular. And so they used what they could and rose back into power. They're no longer just a farmer in a shack, but a lord in a castle. And slowly they started to, with help from the great devil, they made a deal with the devil, Disney. They slowly acquired their lands and titles back. Fox was acquired a little bit while ago, but their opposing company, their opposing kingdom, I should keep going with this analogy. I guess I'm pretty deep in here. The opposing...
The final thing left for them to acquire is that original prize horse that he had to get rid of.
And it's Sony with Spider-Man. And so now that Marvel is this great lord among kings, they just want their horse back. It's a little bit more complicated than that, because like Disney is involved and Marvel is like, you know, creating good content as far as we're concerned, but I can definitely see the side that like they're kind of just yet another drone now of Disney's great empire. But anyways, Sony is just kind of like getting what little they can. Like, they don't know how to properly race the prized racehorse. And so they're like still kind of making money, winning races here and there, but the only way that it truly like performs well is when it's in tandem with its original owner. Ergo, Spider-Man, Homecoming, and Far From Home. Because during Civil War, I'm going to leave the analogy for a second. It's getting a little bit muddled.
Yeah.
So, back when Civil War was coming out, Marvel wanted to use Spider-Man. And so Disney and Sony, Disney/Marvel and Sony made a deal together that Sony would essentially lend Spider-Man to the MCU. They could make like however many movies. Sony would kind of do lots of the heavy lifting, from what I understand, and would get, you know, a certain amount of the profit. And so that deal kind of went on for a while. It was a little bit on unstable grounds the whole time, but eventually Spider-Man Far From Home came out, and Sony seemed really adamant about like taking him back, and Marvel seemed really adamant about like getting more money. And when I say Marvel, I mean like Marvel/Disney kind of
The
collectively, because like Disney is really the one who is going to be doing the dealings here, from what I understand, because they're the ones who own Marvel and therefore are kind of just acquiring these things so that they have all of their little like trophies all together in one place. And so after Far From Home came out, there was a new negotiation where it seems Marvel wanted to get more money, and I guess like maybe there were also talks of potentially acquiring Spider-Man in its entirety. Sony didn't want to sell for any less than $10 10 billion. Jesus Christ. Sony doesn't want to.
That's a little bit more money, yeah.
Sony doesn't want to sell for any more than 10 billion. Any less than 10 billion. And Disney seems to want to get it for about 5 billion. And so like these are some crazy numbers. I think that how much did they spend on Fox alone? Do you remember?
I want to say like
79 billion?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, still.
But
like,
for Marvel and Star Wars in their entireties was like 4.
Yeah. So that's kind of ridiculous that this one character. But when you look at how much money Spider-Man would actually make them,
it's a pretty good deal.
It's supposedly a very worthwhile deal. Again, the only YouTuber that we ever seem to like refer to in all of this stuff is the game theorists / film theorists. Matt Pat did a video explaining this far better than I will do here. But essentially what seems to be happening here is that like Marvel, like Sony's on the back foot here. Like Sony's kind of like living on borrowed time and borrowed characters here.
Especially now that we find out that there's a kind of a loophole in Marvel's contract.
What Matt Pat revealed to us is that apparently Sony is
Apple is in talks to buy Sony. And there's a thing in the contract that says should Sony ever sell, the rights to Spider-Man revert to Marvel. And so they may be able to pull this off by not spending a dime and getting it back for completely free. And so
I can see why they don't want to spend 10 billion on a character then,
And so essentially a little while ago there was all this talks of like, oh, Tom Holland's Spider-Man is no longer going to be in the MCU. And I was like heartbroken because I love the new Spider-Man movies. I love Spider-Man's role in the MCU. It's very important. It's very deep. Yeah. And then all of a sudden he's just going to be gone? Like that breaks the whole universe. And so I was really upset about that. And then allegedly Tom Holland called everybody up and got that sorted out. That's a publicity stunt. Yeah. There's no way that's what happened.
Disney was in control.
Yeah. And so like that gave me a big scare though when we didn't know what was happening. We didn't know like why things all of a sudden had stopped. We still don't really know.
Well, it supposedly is because Disney wanted more.
Yeah.
They said, how about you give us 50%? And they went, no. And so then
they said, okay, Spider-Man is canceled. And then like a month later,
Disney comes
out with like
I don't know if it's like it's either 15 now or 35 or something.
I think they got their 50%.
No, they
didn't
get their 50%.
They still got more than they had before.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like it doesn't make any sense. They got more than what they want. But we're kind of this is all kind of a side tangent and all the kind of background things.
Yeah.
Because it's just kind of to lay the groundwork for the frailty of this deal and like the eggshells that it is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the whole time and no one publicly knows really the deal.
Yeah, exactly. This is all behind closed doors.
MCU Spider-Man can be in the Sony's universe or whatever, because there was rumors when Venom was coming out that people were like, oh, Tom Holland's going to be in Venom. Mm-hmm. And everyone was like,
that doesn't work. Does that mean Venom's in the MCU now?
Yeah, and so it's like kind of weird.
The other thing to just kind of set up here is that Sony's Spider-Man movies have always been separate from the MCU. Mm-hmm. Like, when Iron Man came out, the first Iron Man, it was all kind of still in that gray area where it's like, is this in the same universe as the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man? Because it all was still sort of just movies that were coming out
by then.
No. It was all just movies that were coming out,
mm-hmm.
It was like, oh, well, maybe these are all connected. But as things developed, it became very clear when
it's pretty clear what is in the MCU and what isn't.
When Sony rebooted Amazing Spider-Man, that was pretty much, it's clear that now these things are separate from the MCU. Like, X-Men is separate from the MCU. They have their own universes because everything in the MCU connects to each other, and like by the end now in Endgame, you see everybody there, and Tobey Maguire's not there, Andrew Garfield's not there, Professor X isn't there. Like, these universes are just separate, and they always have been. And like, I assumed that Venom was also separate because you know it's made by Sony, and I thought that only Far From Home and Homecoming were the exceptions to that, because Sony...
It was that Sony can do things with... They can make... Like, they were making most... Like, they were producing a lot of the Far From Home and Homecoming. And it was a one-way mirror, where that Spider-Man went through into the MCU, didn't intermingle backwards, and Venom lived over here and didn't go through either.
Yeah.
You know? It was... Spider-Man's there... He exists in the MCU, even though you do your you're lending him to that.
Yeah, exactly.
And everything else you do.
Sony crosses the barrier into the MCU world, does their work, and then leaves, and doesn't bring things back to their universe with them.
Mm-hmm.
But in this latest Morbius trailer, there was a lot to kind of take in here in regarding Marvel and Sony, what is in the MCU and what isn't. Because it was my understanding that Venom was not. That Venom was yet another reboot of... Because Sony for years has been trying to make a Sinister Six movie.
Yeah.
The Raimi trilogy was eventually supposed to end with, like, the Vulture and Mysterio...
supposed to have... Yeah,
and so like they're always trying to bring in more villains, and then the Amazing Spider-Man, each one
back villain.
Yeah, at the end, was it the end of the second one or the end of the first one? At the end of the second one, this guy walks through this room that has
villain origins hanging up on the
just
wall.
literally just hanging up on the wall, because they're just trying so hard to shoehorn. They must have what they think is this incredible idea regarding a Sinister Six universe.
Just don't, though.
Because now that, like...
Well, Morbius was never part of it.
Well, yeah, and I don't know, because now that Spider-Man is back at Marvel for a little while, Sony just starts making villain movies.
Yeah,
without Spider-Man
so now
in
we
it.
don't have Spider-Man anymore. Who are some villains that origins fully relate to Spider-Man, or they exist because of Spider-Man? Well, let's take Spider-Man out of that, and they're just there.
Yeah.
And we'll make movies about them.
Yeah,
People like
and that's
Deadpool,
the thing
right?
with Venom, his origins are directly tied to Spider-Man.
Yeah.
He brought the symbiote back.
He looks the way he
space.
does because of Spider-Man.
He has the spider on his chest, and in the movie, it's just sort of weird veins that come out of his chest instead. And so, like, Sony keeps trying to make these movies, and like,
and I think it's a reaction to Deadpool. I honestly do.
Where they're trying to make, like, anti-hero universe, but it's not really working. Like, we'll talk a little bit about the original Raimi trilogy, because that's kind of its own animal, and even that sort of descended into a bit madness. The Andrew Garfield universe, I've always kind of liked it, but when you look at that second movie, it's like...
My parents were spies!
Yeah, and like, there's like, Electro plays, like, itsy bitsy spider with giant tubes of electricity.
There's the weird, greebly Green Goblin.
Yeah.
It's just a disease.
Yeah, and it's just like, I don't know, it didn't really land well. Venom, for me...
Well, you're forgetting about Paul Giamatti.
Oh, as the Rhino, and like...
With his Rhino undies.
And so, like, Sony just keeps trying, and, like, it's not really working out
and the
for
other
them
thing with
to
Sony
have
for me
Spider-Man.
Is all their movies, I mean, I don't mean this is offensive. Anyone like Venom? I know that Quinn likes Venom.
I did like Venom.
To me, though, all of Sony's movies, other than Spider-Verse is kind of the outlier in all of this. But all of Sony's stuff, to me, it just feels like they're stuck in the early 2000s of superhero movies.
Yeah.
Where it was...
They never really evolved.
They never really evolved after the Raimi trilogy.
Yeah.
Like, Venom to me was just like, it was that weird dark like, oh, superhero movies. We gotta prove that superhero movies can be good by being gritty and realistic.
Yeah.
You know, and like, we know that superhero movies are good now. People like the madness that they are. You see that from Avengers to now. The costumes, although they are realistic costumes, the color spectrum of costumes in superhero movies has brightened up, in like exploded.
Yeah.
You know, because people realize that, oh, they actually want the comic accurate suits.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? And so like, Sony just keeps going, we need darkness, we need leather, and we need Eminem doing a closing song. When was the last time you went to a superhero movie and there was like a rock or some sort of song about it? Like,
Venom.
Yeah. And before that, when was it? Spider-Man 3, when it's Nickelback singing a song?
Did that happen?
Yeah. Or I think they sang for 2. But one of them, like,
that's
the
age,
a
very,
you
like,
know?
early 2000s.
We don't do that anymore.
Like,
we have soundtracks.
Men in Black, like...
Exactly.
Was that even in the 2000s, or was that, like, a 1990?
It bled into it, but...
Yeah, and so, like...
It just, I don't know, that's just kind of my example.
Yeah,
it's just
exactly.
Like, they're stuck in this age, and they don't learn, and they just keep trying to do it over and over and over again.
Yeah, and so, anyways... This has been a little bit kind of crazy. Mm-hmm. Are you following somewhat?
Yes.
Okay.
I knew a bit of that stuff beforehand, so it was easier to follow.
But... And so now this Morbius movie with Jared Leto,
and everyone knew it existed. Everyone's like, oh, okay, there's a Morbius movie with Jared Leto.
And everyone just kind of collectively sighed.
Everyone kind of collectively sighed, and no one
cares.
No one knew that it actually was a thing. Like, Sony talks a lot of talk, and they're like, oh, we're doing an
Aunt May spy movie.
Aunt May spy movie. What was it? Silk and
Silver Spectre.
Silk. Yeah.
What?
Like, they were doing a two of those movies. They got Felicity Jones, who was going to be the Black Cat, and it's just like, we're doing everything. And so then when they tell you that they're doing a Morbius movie, you kind of just go, yeah,
maybe
sure,
that'll happen.
Sure,
yeah, whatever.
And then all of a sudden they drop this trailer, and it's like, whoa, you guys were serious about that? Hold on.
And so there's a few things to touch on in this trailer. First of all, the effects look like garbage. I'm not going to lie.
He's got like Nightcrawler, like early 2000s when Nightcrawler's like poofing in and out. That's what it looks like. He's running around. He's got purple smoke.
And they showed his like a full vampire CGI'd face at the end. It did not look very good to me.
Aiden really didn't like it. I mean, I didn't really look.
Just it looked fine, and then his mouth moved, and it was like, doesn't work.
You have a lot better of an eye for Uncanny Valley than I do.
Yeah, but I don't know. So first of all, that's that.
Doesn't look great.
And then you see Jared Leto walking down the street or whatever. There's some graffiti behind him. And so, spoiler alert for Spider-Man Far From Home. That movie ends with Spider-Man's identity being revealed by Mysterio.
Yeah, and flipping the script so that it seems like he killed Mysterio in cold blood.
Framing him into being this killer.
Yeah, this bad guy.
Bad guy.
Bad Spider.
Bad Spider. And so, like, if this was in the MCU...
That would make sense.
It would make sense
because
for their...
Okay, let's preface this. The
so,
graffiti behind him is a picture of Spider-Man with the word murderer written over it. And see, that would kind of make sense if it was in the MCU. Yeah. The problem that is
it's not in the MCU, and they used this Spider-Man.
The picture of the Tobey Maguire Raimi Spider-Man. I went online and I Googled it. I was going to make it myself because I didn't know people beat me to it, but there already was side-by-side images because I saw that picture and I went, that's a picture from the Raimi trilogy. It's a famous picture. It's one of the ones where he's flying like that. Everyone's seen that picture. And so, like, I immediately knew what it was. So I was just trying to Google it to find that picture. And by the time I did, people had already done side-by-sides of that picture. Is it on one of those?
Kind of looks like this.
It's pretty much that picture. It's that on the cover of the original Spider-Man movie. Like, That
And
exact
so,
picture. Like they just copy pasted it there, and then someone wrote murderer over
There's
it.
some things to unpack here.
But then
Because what does that mean?
So, but okay, here's the thing. Fine, okay, I'm okay with that, Sony. That all I assume off of that is that Morbius is now in the Raimi trilogy,
and it's a continuation of that universe.
But
the post.
All right, I'll wait for my walkout.
The post-credits scene to this trailer. So it says, "Oh, this is the Morbius movie. Here's who made it," and then it cuts back.
I sent you that too. There's a meme because they go through to say, "From the studio that brought you Far From Home, Homecoming, and Venom," and then it's just like, you guys didn't do Far From Home or Homecoming. You guys are the guys that hired someone else to make those movies.
Yeah.
You know, like my meme was the quote from Rogue One when what's his face? Krennic is like, "We stand here, it's my achievement, not yours."
Yeah.
And it was that, except in Marvel. And
yeah. But at the very end of this trailer,
he's broken. He can't even say
at the end of this trailer, it's Michael Keaton as the maybe not as the Vulture, but Michael Keaton, who played the Vulture, going, "Hey, so I heard you like the whole bad guy thing. What's up, Doc?"
And it's like, what?
And it's like, whoa, hold on, wait, well, what? This is in the Spider-Man universe.
Yeah.
This guy from Spider-Man Homecoming talking about being a bad guy. That's not a coincidence that's that same actor. So what Sony is trying to say is that despite their weird Raimi trilogy Spider-Man as murderer, this is supposed to connect to the MCU, because now there is directly a character from the MCU Spider-Man movies that is in this film. And
what are you trying to spin?
What? Like, what is that? What? Do you have to go?
No, I gotta switch my thing.
Okay. But it doesn't make any sense. Because Sony has never really been in the MCU. Or at least their connected weird villain universe hasn't been. And so, like, was them putting in that Raimi Spider-Man just an absolute mistake? Because if it had been the Tom Holland Spider-Man, then at least everything connects to the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
But having the Raimi suit Spider-Man as Graffiti, and, like, to call him a murderer, that makes sense with the MCU, I guess. Like, I don't want it to be with the MCU, but at least that's consistent. At least I know what they're doing. With this, they've got the Raimi Spider-Man as a murderer. They've got the villain from the MCU's Spider-Man. And it's just, what are you doing, Sony? Why are you ruining the MCU with your weird movies?
They're just trying to shoehorn themselves in. Like, look, we got our Spider-Man, and we just hired this guy. We just hired David Keaton to play a totally different guy, but we're going to trick people into thinking we're in the MCU.
Did you just say David Keaton?
Is that not his name?
Michael
Keaton.
David
Keaton.
That's
his brother.
David, his brother.
They got his twin brother.
It's his twin brother. It's David Keaton, so it's not the Vulture.
There we go.
David Keaton playing the Crow. The crow.
The seagull.
The seagull. David Keaton as the seagull.
I would watch that movie.
Yeah, but
Sony, hire me.
Can you click my camera there? So we've been trying to figure out what is going on. What are they trying to?
What are you trying to pull?
What
here?
are they trying to show? Why would you put that in the trailer?
And that's the thing. Why? It's one thing if you put it in your movie. Why you're trying to hook people in with this?
And that's just going to make people, in an uproar.
Again, I don't mean to bag on Venom, because I know there are people that liked it. Not a huge fan of it. At the time, I was like, this is fine. It's not in the MCU. That's all. Venom not trying to tie into the MCU, that's fine. You know, it's an early 2000s superhero movie for me. That's fine. But, as soon as it's trying to tie in, not good. I don't remember where I was going with this. Is that just that Venom had success, financial success, despite what people say about it? That I feel like, I don't want to offend Quinn, but I feel like the majority of people didn't like that film, and it was just kind of like, At most, it was just kind of a resounding meh.
People just kind of went to see it because there was nothing else
Exactly.
playing.
There was nothing else playing at the time. There's no... It was kind of... Was it in the gap before Infinity War, maybe?
Maybe.
It was like there was nothing else to see.
But that's true.
So everyone just kind of went to see it. We're like, I guess let's go see Venom.
Yeah.
Like,
and then afterwards, I felt guilty because I'm like, I spent money. I gave them money. And now they're taking that and they're ruining something I love because I gave them the movie. And I know, like, me not seeing it, whatever. But, like, it's just...
Yeah, you feel responsible.
I feel responsible for their financial
yeah.
success that made them go, well, we're on the right track
like,
now.
This
Even
whole,
though... No.
This whole trailer just felt like they were trying to spite Marvel. They like you said, they open with, like, from the studio that brought you Far From Home and Homecoming.
It's
They're
like,
we made these movies, not Marvel. They're saying we did it because they haven't said that in they didn't say that in the Venom trailer.
When was the last time any studio has put that in a trailer? These are other movies we made before we show you the trailer for this movie we're making.
I don't know. It's something some people do.
Well, and it's also like you show me from the studio that brought you Far From Home and Homecoming. I go, Marvel?
Wait, yeah, exactly. And so they're trying to claim that back, and then they're going, hey, look, we got the Vulture in this movie. Screw you, Marvel. And it's like, what are you doing? Like, what? Is that allowed? Like, what's
are you
happening
out of
here?
your mind?
Like, it just, like, for them to not use the Tom Holland Spider-Man as their graffiti makes me think that they're not allowed to use that. But then to use the Michael Keaton's Vulture.
Okay, here's the thing. And it doesn't make any sense. Hire someone different. But maybe he's just someone else.
That doesn't make any sense.
I know, but
it has to be the Vulture.
When was the last time Sony was rational? Sony doesn't make sense.
And see, this is... It builds into this just, like, gray area of really... Where it's really difficult to kind of walk. Because... I don't believe that Marvel should own everything.
Disney should
own everything.
Marvel should own everything.
Marvel should own everything. I don't believe that Disney should own every
single
creative property because that's just not good.
But at the same
it's
time,
not good for one company to own all of it. But at the same time, Sony is not making.
Sony has to be stopped. That's my whatever Sony has has to be stopped.
And there should be competition with like creative things, but there has to be competition as
well.
Yeah.
Not just Sony, just a desperate attempt to make things before they get bought out and have to give Spider-Man up willingly.
Yeah.
They're just throwing stuff at a wall.
Yeah.
Because they're like, what do we have left?
Yeah. And it's just to like if you don't like the MCU, I totally see that why you might be on the side of like Sony hopefully won't get acquired, but even if you don't like the MCU, there's not a chance that you like Sony's movies.
Barring Spider-Verse and for some Venom.
Right, Spider-Verse. It just
even
like because all I'm saying is that some people don't like the MCU. And
just because they think it's factory pump out stuff.
Yeah, and we don't really believe that. We grew up with it. We love those movies. We think that there is a lot of substance there.
Yeah.
And so we really like what Marvel is making, and we just sort of try and ignore that Disney is actually controlling all of that. And so we like what Marvel is doing. We like the Spider-Man content that they are making. We're invested in those stories that they're making.
Yeah.
So when it's really easy to, and I mean, Marvel did this, to spin Sony, Disney did this, to spin Sony as the villain. As soon as that, when that first deal ran out, Marvel went, look what they did.
They wouldn't give us more money.
Exactly.
We can make it all go away.
We can
buy them.
They went, hey, Sony, you're going to give us 50%.
No, we're not.
They took away Spider-Man. Shame the non-believers.
No. Yeah. And so, like, that's not, like, that's some really shady stuff. Like, Disney is evil and bad. But Sony is screwing up something that I like that happens to be a Disney property.
Exactly.
You know? And so, like, as much as I don't like the fact that Disney will have everything, part of me is going, Just take them, Disney. Come on, you know.
That's why I think the ideal way. I think the ideal way is for them to get taken by Apple, and then it just reverts back, you know?
Because then Marvel gets what they want. The Sony is slipped away from Disney's fingers, ever acquiring
Disney doesn't
things.
need Sony.
Yeah.
What I mean, then it's just been absorbed into Apple's ever-acquiring fingers.
Yeah, and
on
like
the other
that's
end.
just another problem.
Yeah.
But it just
Disney doesn't need to own PlayStation.
yeah. And it's just we really should be on the side of Sony, but they
If
just
Sony-
don't make good movies.
If Sony was the small creative outlet that's like,
that was making awesome
we're making the
Spider-Man
movies for the love of Spider-Man, you know? We're making these because we love Spider-Man, we love the story we're telling, but they're not.
It doesn't
they're
seem
just
that
another
way.
big company. They
They're
just
just
suck at
another
making
big company.
movies.
Yeah. Like, they're just bad at making movies, and they just watch Sinister 6. We're gonna do it. Like, Sony, with their dying breath, they're gonna make Sinister 6.
Yeah.
You know? Like, and that's why I think Marvel's gonna just beat them to it, just to spite them. I think they'll do that. But, like, that, I don't know, man.
Tom Holland's Spider-Man is so deeply connected to the MCU now
Yeah.
that when there was the threat of the MCU losing that and just having this hole where a character was supposed to be, that made me really upset because I really like the MCU's collective story and how it all connects and
that it's not broken for any reason.
So, and spoiler alert for Infinity War, like,
They all die.
Tony Stark's death,
Endgame.
and Infinity War, like, the Spider-Man, like, dies in that movie, and it's crazy emotional. And then when Tony Stark dies,
He's one
it's
of the people
super
there.
emotional, and, like, their connection is fundamental to Tom Holland Spider-Man's
Far
character.
From Home is all about him being the next leader in the MCU.
And so for Sony to be like, hey, we'll take Tom Holland Spider-Man and put him in these movies without Iron Man, this Spider-Man is not as awesome. Like, that's part of what makes him so good, is his connections to this universe, his mentorship with Iron Man. It's part of what makes him such a good character. And Sony just doesn't understand, like, that not every Spider-Man movie has to have an origin story, and it doesn't always have to. Like,
That was so funny.
There doesn't
When
have
they were
to
gonna
be.
take it again.
Yeah,
and then
Uncle
it's
Ben
I
is
hope,
like,
I hope you're ready for Uncle Ben to die.
Yeah,
again.
and like they always have to do an origin story, and like they always have to find some sort of a way to say with great power comes great responsibility. In The Amazing Spider-Man, he's like, if you have a great ability, then you have to use that ability. You have a responsibility to use that ability, and it's like, just say it. Like, at that point, just say it. But Marvel, in both their movies, both their Spider-Man movies, their second one especially, they showed and not told.
Yeah.
Show, don't tell. They did a fantastic job, especially in Far From Home, and I guess Sony made those movies. I'm still a little bit of a gray area around
Marvel
that,
made those
but
movies.
they did an excellent job with just
Of
showing that
embodying-
struggle without having to say, with great power comes great responsibility. That whole movie, he's struggling with that idea and nobody has to say it. And so if Sony made those movies, what the hell are you doing with Morbius? Like, do what you did with those movies. Like, hire the same people if you want to make it good. Because if you're claiming that you made those movies, then why isn't all your stuff that good?
Exactly.
Clearly, it was the directors and writers that you hired that made those movies good.
Like, and
you
that's
got
the thing.
lucky. That's the same thing with Spider-Verse.
Yes.
You happened to hire good writer-directors, and
Well,
that's why it was
it's
good.
not even though,
Sony
because-
as a whole is not responsible for any of the movies that they make.
No, and
They just have crap luck with
the
hiring
thing is,
bad people, I guess.
What I think it is when you look at it, you look at their track record for the past 10 years, you go, that's crap, that's crap, that's crap. Oh, these ones are associated with Marvel? Oh, I wonder what happened. What could possibly be the reason why these are your best two movies and highest grossing movies of all time?
Yeah.
What could possibly be the connection there? And again, Spider-Verse did happen. as far as Sony's concerned, huge fluke. The people that made it, it makes sense.
Yeah, was
you know?
Lord and Miller?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that makes you go, oh, I kind of wish that... And that's the thing that Disney lost out on. Those guys were supposed to make Solo, and then Disney fired them, and then they made Spider-Verse, and they're just kind of like, yucks.
Yeah.
But, I don't know.
Yeah. I feel like we
Madness.
interrupted you. You tried to talk a few times in
I
there.
had Homecoming's great power, great responsibility quote was like Iron Man's. If you nothing on that suit, you shouldn't have it.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. That was a while ago, but
Yeah.
But that was what I was gonna add.
Yeah. And like,
And even in Civil War, he kind of says,
yeah, if I couldn't then I shouldn't now.
Yeah, if you have these powers and you don't do anything, and then the bad things happen, it happens because of you.
Yeah,
I mean, they get the same sense.
That's so cool. That's so good.
Yeah.
Like, that's structuring it in a good
don't-
way. It's
they don't
not
have-
Martin
You're
Sheen
responsible.
screaming.
Then you've got the
you have-
power, and you're responsible for that power.
If you have,
then the power to be
you have a
responsible.
responsibility to have that power. Or like some crazy convoluted
Just
thing.
yelling about it.
And like, that wasn't even a good scenario. Like, he was just skateboarding and he like forgot to pick up his aunt. And then that's when he threw in the
Just
great
yelling
power,
about it.
great responsibility.
And
you
then-
have the power and responsibility to pick up your goddamn hand.
Yeah,
It's also
what?
it's also like in that universe, Uncle Ben died because Spider-Man wanted some chocolate milk. Like,
That's so stupid too. Like the monkey, like he's got a gun.
Yeah.
yeah, he tried. It's like in BVS when they're getting robbed and Thomas Wayne's idea
Just
is
touch
to
the guy in the face. See, just stop doing origin stories. Like,
Stop.
and in Far From Home, they knew what to do that, and I think because Feige was a producer on those movies.
Because they went just like, shut up. You know who Spider-Man is.
Yeah.
You know how he
And
became Spider-Man.
that was the thing is during Civil War, and I've said this on the podcast I think before, is that they made 2 movies came out about the same time: Civil War, Batman vs Superman. One of them had an origin story about a superhero that you knew exactly what happened and you've seen it 100 times. The other had the same kind of superhero, but they didn't give you the origin story again. One of them was a great movie, and the other one was Batman vs Superman.
I mean, even with like how his powers work, they do the show versus tell type thing. You see, Spider-Man has he doesn't shoot it grossly out of his wrist. He has mechanical web shooters.
That decision.
Yeah,
And
and
like those movies, Raimi trilogy, I'll never disrespect them, but
yeah, well, that's the thing is that they're so nostalgic.
They're nostalgic, and you can't deny that they were the pioneers.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? But
and they just they're very silly. Like they're really kind of silly and I don't know, the second one especially just makes fun of itself. Like it starts off with Spider-Man delivering a
freeze
pizza.
frame.
Yeah, and then he's
Pizza time.
raindrops keep falling on my
Yeah,
head. He's
it's
eating
freeze
a hot
frame
dog.
mid-movie.
Yeah, there's a car, a police chase going on. He just takes a bite
what I
of a
wanna
hot
make?
dog,
You
and
know
then
what
there's a freeze frame with him being all happy.
You know what I'm gonna make is a
and then
video?
he falls and is like, "Oh, my back!" And it's like, what is happening?
I'm gonna make a video that's Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man stops being Spider-Man and witnesses horrible crimes. Where he's just walking, and there's just people dying.
Yeah, he's like, gotta eat my hot dog.
Yeah, there's guys throwing Molotov cocktails
And so
through windows.
those are kind of silly, goofy movies, but they're good. They're entertaining to watch. I'll always watch those shows if they're on TV. I'll be like, hey, I like watching these. It's been a while. The third one, however, it suffered from Sony's age-old disease, which is too many villains
Insert villains.
inserted. Yeah,
My favorite scene for that is Green Goblin wanging his head on the pipes, falling down like a cartoon.
Oh yeah,
every tree branch on the way down.
Yeah,
and then he gets amnesia.
Yeah.
I'm a good guy now.
That's a pretty crazy movie, man.
It's so ridiculous. But then
so
also,
it's got New Goblin.
New Goblin.
It's got the Venom / symbiote.
That was one of the one. That was.
It's got
that
Sandman.
Venom was purely Sony.
Yeah.
Sony said, "Put Venom in this movie."
Right.
And he's like, "I don't want to put Venom in this movie." And they're like, "You will put Venom in this movie." And so he shoehorned Venom in, and it's just like, what is happening?
What is happening? Yeah, and then the first Amazing Spider-Man, the lizard was a little bit weird, but I kind of liked that movie. Like, it was pretty alright. When I first saw it, the second one, it was pretty good, but watching that again, it's got the Rhino at the beginning. Then it's got Electro, who is this weird dude whose origin is Spider-Man didn't remember me. I don't have any friends, and so he became a psychopath.
It's such a
Fell in
jump,
a shock
like,
vat of
in a vat
electric
of
eel.
eels. Sony, what are you doing?
A vat of electric eels.
This is not 1999.
and then you have weird goblin disease, man.
Yeah.
It's like they're so insistent on showing origin stories, but they all suck.
Yeah.
They're so bad.
Oh, it's like they
Vat
didn't
of eels.
research Electro. They said, "Who's a Spider-Man villain?" Electro. Okay. Let's see. His name is Electro.
Electric eels.
He should fall in a vat of electric.
I feel like that's not enough. I think he should be holding an
Wires.
electric wire
Yeah.
plus electric eels. The double electric feedback makes him into a blue man.
It's like it's like.
I don't know what
you know
Electro's
it is?
origins actually are.
Neither do I. So maybe they're 100% accurate. If they are, I'm sorry, Marvel,
Sorry.
that's dumb. But it's like Sony had a hat. This is our superhero origin hat.
Vat electric
All right.
eels
Playing
fall.
Super- Sorry,
Superhero.
Mad Libs.
All right, villain falls into vat of electric eels.
Yeah,
What?
that is what it seems like.
You know?
They were
Yeah.
so close to like 1960s Joker.
Yeah,
Exactly.
falling into a vat of
Yeah.
nondescript
It's like when people
substance.
feed the AI a bunch of like things,
To
and then it
write
makes
a
it's
script,
making.
yeah.
That's what it was.
That's what it seems like. But yeah, it's just like, ugh. Sony,
has to
please
stop.
stop.
Please
Like,
stop.
make something good. Like this Morbius trailer, it just looks like another like kind of Venom-esque, like weird.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like, what is the point of this?
I just remembered a good criticism I saw online about the Amazing Spider-Man. The second one in particular is there's this whole story about like who Peter's parents are, and that kind of ruins the whole message that like anybody could have been Spider-Man, and that Peter's the hero, not his parents
Yeah.
type thing. And this is
You
kinda,
were destined to be
yeah,
Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Go
that was never
throw the
message.
calculator
was it?
at the
I don't-
wall and get my magic coins
Get
that
my
unveil
gold doubloons.
this
Yeah.
underground subway train car.
They got
That's
the hat. Subway. Train
Yeah,
car.
train
Gold
car.
doubloons.
It was. I am now convinced Sony made Amazing Spider-Man 2 from a hat. I am convinced of that.
And then, like, there's a deleted scene where they used
They
Lord
used
of the Rings music
music.
as temp music, and it's like playing Into the West
Yeah.
as like he's at Gwen Stacy's grave, and then
His
this like
dad
fat
shows
guy
up.
is like, "Hello, son." Pom, 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 pom. And it's like, what is happening? Like,
your dad, Peter.
is that Into the West? Like, what's going on here?
Oh my god.
Oh, it is just so
It's too much.
ridiculous.
It's too much.
It's so insane.
It's too
And so,
much.
like, Sony just needs to stop.
Yep.
Woody Harrelson with the carrot top wig as Carnage.
It's bad.
No, thank you.
I feel bad because like I've kind of typecast Woody Harrelson as like not a serious actor, but it would have helped if they didn't put him in like the red wig.
Like, what the hell? Like, Sideshow Bob? Like, it's ridiculous.
wig
Like,
is the worst
we
part.
Get Carnage
I
as
could-
red.
I could see him doing that. That's okay. Fine. Let him be a crazy guy. Just at least one, get a better wig. Two, just cut all his hair
It's
off.
like
I
they
don't
were,
care. It's
it's
not
like
that
they were
important.
worried that we wouldn't get he was Carnage.
Yeah,
like,
you wouldn't
red.
understand.
And then he's gonna say
and then
it's
he
gonna
has
be
to
Carnage.
say, when I get out of here, there's gonna be carnage.
That was the worst.
Get it?
That was the worst.
Like, oh,
It's so
it's
bad.
so stupid.
It's
And like,
so bad.
I get that Cletus Cassidy or Cade Cassidy, I don't remember what his name is. Cletus Cassidy.
I don't
He's
know
got
where
crazy
that's
red
Cletus.
hair, but like, make it long
Give him
and
stringy
weird,
hair,
and like, it doesn't have to be this weird poofy. He
'Cause
looks
I
like
get
a
that-
clown.
I get
he looks
that's what
like
it
a
looked
clown.
like in the comic book.
But cartoon is not the
Have
same
you
as reality.
seen Harry Osborn's hair in the comic book?
It's like cornrows with a widow's peak.
Look it up.
Like-
Look it up. You'll have a laugh. How
And
you
if
say
they
that?
had done like, if they had done that, cornrows with a widow's peak, like hair
the
is
worst
not
thing.
that important. Even with the guy whose name is Harry, like it's not important.
It's rough, man.
Like It's so bad. That wig is so awful. Every time I see it, I cringe because it's like, this is not a threatening psychopath. This is Woody Harrelson in a ridiculous wig saying, "I'm Carnage." Like,
my name's not Cletus Cassidy.
Have a little faith in your
Carnage.
audience, for God's sake.
Like subtlety. Have a little bit of subtlety.
Get some.
It's just like what I've always wanted from a Carnage movie is like a gritty murder like mystery where there's just like this crazy killer on the loose with like these inexplainable like horrific scenes. And then, like...
Carnage should be more of a horror.
Yeah, a horror, like,
thriller.
crime movie.
Yeah, and, like, I will say I liked Venom, but the end fight was pretty disappointing.
It was just two
because,
gray
like,
blobs
like,
around.
It should have been, like... I don't know what the right word for it is, but, like, more impact in the fight, because it's not, like, they're hitting each other, they're kind of, like, melding.
Yeah.
And then it wouldn't have even been harder CG, because, like, there's less stringy particles everywhere.
like,
they could have just been punching each other.
And there's
That
so
would've
goopy.
Color Riot
too big.
Or, like,
differently.
and, like, I wanted to see Venom, like, bite into the... he has the big teeth.
Yeah,
exactly.
And, like, sometimes he seems kind of solid.
And they
then
slid
in
their-
that fight, he's just all stringy.
They slid their one PG-13 F-bomb in there, and that just took me out of the whole movie.
What was it again?
Like,
What
right
did
at
he
the
say?
end, he's just like, let's kill this guy or something.
What?
He's like, I don't remember what it
I
was.
think I blocked that part out.
Yeah, it was pretty rough. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. They should have colored them differently, because Riot was just like
He
an
was
off
just gray.
brown.
He was just like a gray black.
He was just
Venom
Duke
was
brown.
black.
I like-
just like
I like the weapon design on... What was it? What was that guy? Riot, yeah, because he had those, like...
he had the axes, but for me, that was it was a bit too much because a rule of animation is the mass displacement. If you get squished this way, he goes out this way. Like, it's consistent. There's that scene in, like, the space station or whatever when Riot just maintains the same shape, big, bulky guy and makes 30-foot axes and cuts off everybody's heads.
I remember
and
that
I'm like,
scene, yeah.
what? Why? You can just make infinite goo? I didn't like that.
Yeah, I don't remember
I would have
that
liked
movie
it
very
if
well.
they were a bit more solid. I know that, like, the
Yeah.
symbiotes are
Yeah.
supposed to be, like, those goopy...
But I think that
goofy
once
guys.
they're in a form,
form
they
up a
should
bit,
they
yeah.
should be solid. Because
'Cause, like,
that fight was
It
just
would have been
the
way
best-
cooler with, like, real... Like, he had the
An
axes,
actual,
then he
like,
kind of just,
fight
like,
scene.
dissolved.
Yeah.
Like, they were kind of pointless.
Yeah, and
But-
so it's just
That's my main criticism.
Yeah. I don't know.
And,
That
like,
whole movie
Well,
was
and
just
then kind of a
weird.
point for me is, like, the stuff in Stranger Things is kind of goobly like that. Do them practical. I don't know. Like, do something to make them look a lot more authentic.
Yeah.
Like,
Are you talking about, like, the flesh monster and, like, the hospital scene?
I don't think
That was
any
the
of that
worst
was
one,
practical.
no.
but like the Demogorgon and stuff.
Yeah.
That guy's kind of gooey.
Yeah.
He looks
Yeah.
real, you know?
But like I
but
think
then
they
the
made
other-
Venom and Riot both too big. They
Mhm.
also just killed the rest of the pack. Like there's Riot, Venom, and like 3 or 4 other ones.
Yeah.
And
But
they all
of
just
them in
they
the
all just
comics, I'm
allegedly
pretty
died.
sure were just like kind of spin-offs of Carnage and Venom. Like all of those were kind of like subsidiaries of Venom.
Yeah. I
Like
don't know.
Riot
I don't know.
and whatever Riot Mayhem and like whatever the hell they
Yeah.
were.
And,
I don't know.
synonym.
Yeah.
Violence.
Violent action.
Harm.
Harm. Yeah. Like, one of them's like Shriek or something. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know, man. What was I thinking? Eddie Brock. Tom Hardy's a good actor. Why do you have him in a lobster tank?
Eating a
What
raw
are you-
lobster.
Like, I don't know what's going on there, man.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of weird stuff that Sony churns out. Like even if you like that movie, there's some weird
Decisions.
and just like not great choices. Like even
Mm-hmm.
if that fight is the only part you didn't like, that's a pretty consequential part to
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
movie
and I
to
mean,
screw up.
Yeah.
the smoke fight was pretty good from my memory.
With, like, the riot police
Yeah.
or whatever. Yeah.
I remember being
Venom's
that
just
the
way
best
too
part.
big. Venom's
I
too big.
remember
He's
that
not
being
like
the best part of the movie.
if
but then
I
again,
remember that movie correctly, Venom is like taller than the Hulk size.
in that movie,
In that movie,
he
he's way
seems
too
about
big.
Hulk sized,
He's
and he's got weird tiny calves. He
I
needs
don't know.
to do
He
some
just
squats.
he
or
seems too
something.
big. Like it seems
Yeah.
like they got a little overzealous with making him this big monstrosity and this cool independent guy when he could have just been like human-sized.
Well, he was, I think, a bit too small in that one, wasn't he?
He was just human size. Wasn't
Yeah.
Human-sized. You need
So split the
in
difference.
between.
Like 8 feet. That seems like
get the mountain sized
big
guy.
bulky 8 feet.
Yeah.
That'd be good size.
I don't know. We went off on quite a tangent, just yelling about.
But something that I
Venom.
something I wanted to say for the Sony and like kind of that is that if for whatever in the future, if we get more viewers, if Sony ever was to see this is my kind of message to Sony. If you guys keep Spider-Man, you keep the rights to these things, which I'm sorry, I don't hope you do. But if you are, look at Spider-Verse, and that's where you need to kind of take from. Not that you should do more Spider-Verse and bring in every other Spider-Man, because as much as people yell and say that that's what they want, it's a fine line. It's a fine line, and doing that correctly is a big task. You know, and like that can go badly very quick, and people don't always know what they want. You know,
and well, that's the thing is that if this appearance of Michael Keaton's Vulture is a Spider-Verse thing, you don't put that in the trailer because that's a very complicated and confusing thing to explain.
And what I'm hoping for that, if you bring in Tom Holland into your universe,
it has to be separate.
Let it either be separate. He's not gone through the same things that he has in the MCU. It's completely different. He's just Earth 616, whatever it is. He's just a different universe Spider-Man. Or wait until Multiverse of Madness. Once the MCU establishes their multiverse, then you can kind of do that. And maybe, I'm hoping, is if they do something crazy and ruin it, Marvel will be able to correct course with that, you know? Okay, but my message to Sony, look at Fox. They've made a lot of bad X-Men movies over the years. No one can despite... They made Wolverine Origins. It's bad news over there. But they did have success. Okay? They made Deadpool. They made 2 Deadpools. They made Logan. But when you look at those, and I see what you're saying, Sony. I hear it. It's the R rating, right? It's not the R rating.
And they were gonna do that for Venom, and then they copped out.
And they didn't. And that's the other thing. If you're doing Carnage, Carnage has to be R rated.
Yeah,
just saying.
R-rated, violence.
Yes.
It's gotta be horror and like crime.
With that,
like murder,
R-rated
killer.
is not the secret there. The secret there is creative freedom and a compelling story.
Yeah.
That's the secret there. So when you look at your things, what have you done well? What are your successful things? Creative story and compelling things.
Yeah.
Spider-Verse, you let the creators have their creativity, and they did something good.
Yeah.
Wow, what a surprise. You know? Like, that's the lesson you need to take away. Not that we need necessarily more Spider-Verse. Not that we need an R rating on every single thing we do. Not that we need villain movies either. Stop making movies about villains. There's a reason that for as long as stories have existed, there are heroes and villains in the story.
There's only so many times you can do anti-hero. Like, it's an interesting angle. It's a very compelling thing to do, but you can only do it so many times without hashing out the same thing.
Exactly.
Morbius is just going to be Venom, but with a vampire.
Exactly.
I guarantee
even when you look at Deadpool or Logan, those are the tippy top of the anti-hero list. At the end of the day, they're good guys. You know? Yeah. They're going to do what's right at the end of the day, even if how they get there is a bit messy. That's why they're anti-heroes. Not because they're going to go off and be Venom and turn a guy into a turd in the wind. Direct quote from Venom. That's not why. But it's because they have no problem killing every single person in their way to get what they think is good done. You know? For them, the ends justify the means, you know? Whereas Captain America will avoid killing people. He'll tell Bucky, don't kill these guys, you know? We're the good guys in the end. We don't trade lives, you know? Whereas Deadpool, he doesn't care about that. He'll kill anyone just to do what he wants, you know? But, yeah.
I don't know. I think we should probably wrap it up. This has been quite a convoluted thing. Do you have any last notes to add, Quinn?
guess just my message to Sony: hit me up for David Keaton's The Seagull.
Perfect. Exactly.
You know where to find me.
Yep. And so, yeah, if you stuck around to the end, that's awesome. If we got any facts wrong, I refer you to MatPat. It'll probably make a lot more sense if you watch that and then come back here. Maybe I should have said that at the beginning.
This is kind of a glimpse into our more heated style. I don't think the world has seen the true Hulk.
And we've somehow contained ourselves when talking about The Last Jedi.
Which is impressive.
I think that someday we'll do a full-on tear apart of that movie.
Just a rage-fueled podcast.
Because,
and probably the end of the show that shall not be named. We'll probably do a big tear apart of that.
Whoa.
And so, if more people watch this one and you guys like when we're kind of getting heated and talking about stuff, let us know, because we've got some topics that we can get heated about.
Yeah, exactly. But
yeah,
it was a little bit. Yeah, it was a little bit muddled today, trying to explain this complicated scenario.
Yeah.
But in conclusion, that is the show.
Biddy bop-a-do.
Bam bam stabap scoop bop.
Scat man.
The end.